Tonight on Ukraine Today, Ukrainian strikes, Ukrainian forces hit the base of the Akhmat regiment in Chechnya, Gudermes, and an oil depot in Russia's Oryol region. Diplomatic pressure. What did Ukraine and the United States agree on, and how does the White House see the chances to finally end Russia's war? A moment for bold steps. NATO is now considering a pre-emptive strike as a response to Russia's hybrid attacks. A failure of Russia's so-called superweapon. What just happened to the Sarmat missile, and why is Kremlin propaganda trying to hide it? All that and more, right now. Hello, I'm Volodymyr Robchun and this is Ukraine Today. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get to the news. We start with a strike on Kadyrov's fighters. Last night, something hit the location of the Akhmat regiment in Chechnya, Gudermes. There are reports that an FSB building got damaged too. The aftermath is still being confirmed. Ukrainian drones attacked an oil depot in Russia's Oryol region. Moreover, our defense forces just set a new monthly record for strikes on Russian oil refineries since the start of the full-scale invasion. According to Bloomberg, there were at least 14 successful attacks. In the temporarily occupied eastern territories, Ukrainian forces destroyed Russian radar and air defense launchers. That's according to Ukraine's military intelligence. Drones, once again, did their job. Ukraine is increasing its drone production. Some of the manufacturing will happen in other countries. More bad news for the enemy up next.
A new level and scale. Ukraine and Norway have reached an agreement on collaboration in the field of unmanned aerial vehicle production. The corresponding agreement was signed by the Ukrainian side with the Norwegian Minister of Defense. Dennis Shmihal emphasized that this cooperation will become an important stage in expanding Ukraine's production capabilities and strengthening the country's defense capacity. The top priority is the rapid deployment of an experimental production line as early as 2026.
We are gaining access not only to production facilities, but also to the technologies of NATO countries. This also means the opportunity for cooperation in the production of Ukrainian drones and, accordingly, the exchange of experience, as well as in the practical use of Ukrainian interceptor drones, both strike drones, and accordingly they're scaling up.
A similar model of cooperation is also being implemented with the United Kingdom. A few days ago, Kyiv signed a licensing agreement for large-scale production of Octopus interceptor drones at British facilities.
This is an exclusively Ukrainian development, and it is already being used in real combat conditions. This drone can operate both at night and it is effective against electronic warfare systems, and notably, this drone can operate at low altitudes.
The manufactured interceptor drones will be delivered to Ukraine to strengthen its defense against Russian drones. The Octopus project is being implemented as a joint defense industrial initiative. The United Kingdom has obtained a license for mass production of the Ukrainian interceptor, and Ukraine will receive them to ensure its own interception capabilities.
The recently signed agreement provides for the extensive production of several thousand advanced interceptor drones for the critical needs of Ukraine's defense forces, specifically at secure enterprises located within the United Kingdom, which effectively eliminates the possibility for the aggressive Russian side to successfully destroy the vital defense plants manufacturing this essential product.
3 manufacturers have already received the necessary technologies to produce the Octopus drones. Another 11 companies are preparing production lines for them. After Russia's full-scale aggression began in 2022, the United Kingdom became one of Ukraine's main partners. London is providing powerful military assistance. In addition, the United Kingdom is actively promoting sanctions pressure on Russia and providing financial support to Kyiv.
The United Kingdom is a pioneer in this regard, in practical terms, in the implementation of so-called coalitions, coalitions for drones, naval coalitions, and coalitions for strike capabilities. And accordingly, it was the United Kingdom that provided Ukraine with the first heavy weaponry. In particular, we're talking about the Challenger 2 tank. Only after the corresponding actions by the United Kingdom did the United States provide Ukraine with their Abrams tanks.
There are also plans in Ukraine to create robotic strongpoints, which will be equipped with combat modules to counter Russian occupiers. In
the first place, this refers to the logistics component, meaning ground robots. They will take on the main part of logistics, reducing to zero the losses of personnel and, accordingly, equipment of the defense forces of Ukraine. This concerns the delivery of ammunition and, accordingly, the evacuation of the wounded. Additionally, these are engineering functions, such as mining and demining areas.
Earlier, Ukraine, together with the United States, began producing drone interceptors capable of countering Russian strike drones. Additionally, the Dutch government will provide 250 million euros for the purchase of American weapons for Ukraine under the Oryol program. In the United States, anti-aircraft missiles for F-16s and ammunition, which Kyiv needs most, will be purchased in particular.
Over the past 24 hours, Russia lost at least 1,110 occupiers, killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's already 1,175,030 invaders. Also, in the last 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 1 Russian armored vehicle, 14 artillery systems and dozens of other pieces of enemy equipment. More on the battlefield in the report.
Drones in Caspisk, Dagestan.
Strikes on the Caspian, the distance is over 1,000 kilometers to Caspisk. These are routine operations by the Ukrainian defense forces and, accordingly, the Ukrainian intelligence community.
There are several military facilities of the occupying country in Caspisk, as well as oil refining enterprises, so they could have been the targets of the strike. In this footage, Ukrainian drone operators on the border are eliminating legitimate targets. As a result, in the southern Slobozansky direction, 2 enemy vehicles, communication systems, and 5 occupiers were destroyed. Here, soldiers of the 57th Brigade are destroying waiting drones whose plan was to disrupt Ukrainian logistics. Another small victory for the Ukrainian armed forces is the clearing of the village of Ivanivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region from occupiers. On the deep state map, you can see that on November 28th, Ivanivka was marked as a gray zone, and on the 29th it was already designated as liberated territory. The situation remains more difficult in the Pokrovsk direction. In Mirnograd, the Russian army does not stop trying to encircle the Ukrainians.
Regarding Mirnograd, the situation is difficult. Fighting is taking place directly in Mirnograd itself, on the outskirts. The occupiers are trying, by using small assault groups, to slip through, to infiltrate directly into the urban area and create conditions to establish themselves and to accumulate both manpower and, accordingly, means of destruction. Ukraine's defense forces are successfully conducting strike and search operations aimed at destroying the enemy's assault groups.
The US is demanding a complete withdrawal of the Ukrainian armed forces from Donbas, journalists report. The Ukrainian side is opposed and is demanding a meeting between Zelensky and Trump.
Apparently, at this point, a final decision in the negotiation process has not been reached. On the other hand, it should also be emphasized that Bitkov has already flown to Moscow for negotiations with the Russian dictator.
Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that NATO is preparing for a potential conflict with Russia with minimal support from the US.
At the moment, it is precisely under pressure from the United States that the process of actual modernization of the military-industrial complex of European NATO countries is taking place, and accordingly, processes related to the re-equipment of European partners with the latest strike and correspondingly active defense systems.
The Ukrainians can also boast about the modernization of their weaponry. Our country is developing weapons against Russian glide bombs, KABs, and can already report their successful use and the destruction of the first 100 enemy aerial bombs.
It was precisely the mass use of KABs that allowed the Russian Federation to achieve certain tactical successes directly on the line of contact. We're talking about the fact that on certain sections of the front, the aviation of the occupying country, the Russian Federation's aerospace forces, strike the positions of Ukraine's defense forces using up to 300 KABs per day. In response to these challenges, the Ukrainian side has developed a system to counter KABs. This is a joint development with NATO countries, which will include several components, ground-based, airborne, and accordingly, electronic warfare systems.
The development of new defense systems is vital for Ukrainians under constant shelling from Russia. At this point, every resident of Ukraine is under threat, even the weapons developers themselves. During the strike on Vishorod in the Kiev region, an employee of the defense company Firepoint, who was working on the Flamingo missile, was killed in his own home. With an Iskander-M ballistic missile strike, Russia took the lives and health of civilians in Dnipro who will no longer go to work, return home, or visit friends because the Kremlin has taken that possibility from them.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. Now is the perfect moment to subscribe, like this video and share it. Please do it. Thank you. And glory to Ukraine. A Russian drone hit a 9-story apartment building in Kramatorsk, Donetsk region. One person was killed. Rescuers saved 5 residents and extinguished a major fire across 2 entrances. Meanwhile, Russian forces attacked energy facilities in several regions. Power outages are reported in Odessa, Donetsk, Kharkiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Emergency repair teams are working at all sites. Today, Dnipro is holding a day of mourning for those killed in the Russian strike. Early Monday, Russian missiles hit the city, killing 4 people and injuring dozens. Residential buildings, office spaces, an educational facility and 49 cars were damaged.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky met in Paris with French President Emmanuel Macron. According to Zelensky, they focused on negotiations aimed at ending Russia's war and on security guarantees. He added that a lot now depends on the activity of each leader. Later, Zelensky and Macron held a call with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Ukraine's NSDC Secretary Rustem Umerov and Donald Trump's Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. They discussed the negotiations between Ukrainian and US representatives in Florida. Volodymyr Zelensky and the First Lady arrived in Ireland. Several official meetings are planned. A Ukrainian delegation will also arrive to give the president all the details on the results of the talks with the Americans regarding the peace plan. Trump's administration is maybe surprisingly optimistic about the chances for a deal to end the Russian war in Ukraine. That's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, but ABC News writes that the meeting between the US and Ukrainian delegations brought no breakthrough, because the Kremlin rejects the idea of a ceasefire, while Kyiv is not ready for territorial concessions. So the question is, what exactly did Steve Witkoff bring to Putin today?
A final peace plan has not been agreed upon, but Trump still claims there is a good chance of resolving the war. A meeting between Ukrainian and US delegations took place in the United States. The negotiations lasted about 5 hours, and in the end, both sides described them as successful and constructive.
They are ongoing, and they are going well. We want to stop the killing of people. This doesn't directly concern us, but I would like to save as many lives as possible. A lot of people are dying. Last month, 27,000 people died in this senseless war. This should never have happened.
At the same time, as before, the 2 main issues remain security guarantees for post-war Ukraine and the territorial concessions that Kyiv is being pressured to make. Obviously, neither of these issues has been resolved.
On the contentious issues that were being negotiated, there has been no progress. I can tell you that on the issues of withdrawing Ukrainian troops from Donbas and the status of the occupied and annexed Ukrainian territories, there simply isn't even a theoretical solution. What is currently being proposed by the United States is something Ukraine cannot agree to. I don't see any compromise here. Therefore, the American side will indeed take to Russia a comprehensive peace plan text that is about 80 to 85% agreed upon, reflecting significant progress and mutual understanding.
In turn, the head of the American delegation, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, stated that there is still a lot of work ahead, but some progress was nevertheless achieved during the negotiations in Florida the day before. At the same time, analysts note that this time the United States has started to listen more to Ukrainian arguments and has stopped repeating that the war must end at any cost.
It is also about ensuring that the war ends in such a way that Ukraine remains sovereign and independent and has the opportunity for real prosperity. In other words, it's not just about ending the war. It's about ending the war in such a way that a mechanism and a path forward are created, allowing Ukraine to remain independent and sovereign, never experience war again, and achieve great prosperity for its people.
Kyiv also notes that there has been more constructive dialogue between the US and Ukrainian delegations. The head of the Ukrainian negotiating team, Rustem Umerov, also called the meeting successful and substantive, noting that further consultations and work on agreeing on a common framework solution lie ahead.
We are grateful to the United States and their team for helping us. The United States hears us clearly. The United States steadfastly supports us. The United States firmly stands by us. And we are profoundly grateful for absolutely everything that has been diligently done up to this very important day.
At the same time, the next stage of negotiations will be a visit to Moscow by Steve Witkoff, who is expected to deliver the agreed-upon points to Putin and hear his response. According to experts, after the sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft, the Kremlin will be wary of issuing a direct refusal. Analysts consider the most likely scenario to be that Putin will propose direct negotiations with Trump, which never took place in Budapest. And here much depends on the American guarantor. After all, Washington has previously stated that such a meeting is only possible after Moscow accepts the peace agreement.
If Trump makes concessions, if the meeting takes place without Russia's prior agreement to some kind of peace plan, then Putin will put forward a new ultimatum. That's a dead end. As practice shows, when the Americans accommodate Putin, when they start making concessions to Russia, Putin begins to put forward new additional demands, and the negotiation process comes to a standstill.
In turn, another Trump envoy, U.S. Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, is supposed to go to Kyiv. He will apparently try to persuade Volodymyr Zelensky to make new concessions regarding the agreement. And in this situation, it is also extremely important for Ukraine to demonstrate its willingness to engage in dialogue.
It is quite likely that Trump will continue his tactic of alternately putting pressure on official Kyiv and then on the Kremlin. That's why the main thing here is to catch the right wave at the right time and amplify it, precisely with the intention of achieving the desired result. Therefore, of course, it's especially important here to demonstrate a constructive approach from the Ukrainian delegation. And indeed, as of now, we have not given a single reason to doubt such a statement.
At the same time, in order to coordinate the positions of Ukraine and Europe, Zelensky flew to Paris the day before to meet with French President Emmanuel Macron. So this week will clearly show how willing all sides are to make concessions and whether it is worth expecting the negotiations to succeed in the near future.
NATO is considering a more aggressive posture and even a preemptive strike as a response to Russia's hybrid attacks. That's according to the Financial Times. NATO's military committee chair, Admiral Giuseppe Cavodragone, says this should be a move from reactive to proactive tactics. And a preemptive strike could be an answer to constant cyber attacks, sabotage, and airspace violations by Russia. The words are clear, and the question is, will there be action? Italy's government approved its 12th package of military aid for Ukraine. It includes transport vehicles, materials and equipment. The full list remains classified for security reasons. The war between Russia and Ukraine has now reached a level that threatens navigation safety in the Black Sea. That's what Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said after tankers of Russia's Shadow Fleet were attacked near Turkey's Black Sea coast.
The war between Russia and Ukraine has now reached a point where it clearly threatens navigation security in the Black Sea. On Friday, commercial vessels in our exclusive economic zone were targeted. This, frankly, shows a worrying escalation.
And meanwhile, Putin is talking about creating a security zone along Ukraine's northern border. Some believe this means expanding of occupation into border areas of Kharkiv, Sumy and Chernihiv regions. Just a quick reminder of how ready Russia is for peace. And finally, Russia's superweapon, or rather its failure. The Sarmat missile. If you listen to Putin, It's hell in a metal shell, but the latest launch ended with a loud and almost instant self-destruction. Here are the details.
A unique missile system with no analogues in the world is already effectively in service with the Russian army. Back in June 2023, Putin was making such statements.
In the very near future, the first advanced Sarmat complex launchers, equipped with the powerful new heavy missile, will officially commence their combat duty.
It's already December 2025 outside the window. Yet another weapon with no analogues still isn't on combat duty.
There's nothing in the world like Sarmat. It's still not on duty with us yet. It will be on duty soon.
And judging by the latest failed tests at the Yasny Cosmodrome in the Orenburg region, the Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile is still a long way from being put on combat duty.
Hold me, I'm filming.
This is already the second unsuccessful attempt to test the Sarmat missile. The first one happened in 2024. The missile exploded in the silo during a failed launch at the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in the Arkhangelsk region. This time, the failed launch, which happened on the last weekend of November, was caught on video by locals. After the explosion, a huge cloud of poisonous orange-violet color rose into the air. The Russian authorities did not provide an official comment, and local media reported that there would be no evacuation from Yasny, claiming that the smoke cloud posed no threat to people. And in general, everything is fine. The color of the cloud after the explosion is characteristic of something very toxic.
Such a color is characteristic only of rockets that use rather toxic fuel, the so-called pair of nitrogen tetroxide and unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, which are better known as amyl and heptyl. It is precisely amyl and heptyl that are used as fuel in a whole range of Soviet and now Russian rockets.
The Yasny Cosmodrome is, first and foremost, a missile launch base, one of 11 sites in Russia from which rockets with nuclear warheads can be launched. And with high probability, these were yet another series of unsuccessful tests of the Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile.
The missile is supposedly in serial production, supposedly even adopted into service, all of this since 2022. But with so many launch failures, it's very hard to talk about its actual deployment or real combat readiness, at least by even the most minimal high standards. Both the shape of the missile and, most importantly, the place where it happened point to the Sarmat. The place is that very Yasny, where the Sarmats are based in silos.
If the information about the launch is confirmed 100%, then this was the third or fourth Sarmat launch, of which only one was successful, at least partially. Most likely, the launches were carried out at the end of the year so that Putin could threaten with another wonder weapon during his annual address to the Federal Assembly. But as we can see, things did not go according to plan.
It was just another childish morning performance, like in kindergarten. Everything was scripted. Who says what? But there was no reason for that because the missile exploded. Andriy Ryzhenko, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Navy from 2004 to 2020.
80% of the tests, specifically the first ones, were successful, but the subsequent ones were not. No one can seriously consider this missile as an already finished product. However, there is no doubt that work on it is ongoing.
Along with the failed launch of the Sarmat nuclear missile over the weekend, another incident occurred at the Baikonur Cosmodrome during the launch of Soyuz MS-28.
As a result of the post-flight inspection, it was determined that the exhaust jet from the first stage rocket engine tore off part of Launch Complex number 6 of Space Rocket Complex number 31, specifically one of the service cabins. The cosmonauts were unharmed, but the launch complex will require repairs. After the transfer of the Gagarin launch pad number 1 to the Kazakhstan Museum of Cosmonautics, pad number 31 remains the only one from which manned launches can be carried out. There is no replacement or backup pad for Soyuz manned flights anymore. Only cargo pads remain.
Now the sole remaining Roscosmos pad from which manned launches could effectively be carried out is now left without a fully functioning essential service cabin. Rocket and space programs, both military and research, are failing one after another in Russia. And such failures cast serious doubt on Russia's status as both a nuclear and space power.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time.